A very good morning to all. On behalf of the Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities of General Sir John Kotalalu Defence University, we welcome you all to the second parallel technical session on language and education of 14th International Research Conference on Security, Stability and National Development in the New Normal. Ladies and gentlemen, this session will be chaired by Dr. Bimali Indrarathne. May I also have the honor of giving a brief introduction of the chairperson of this session. Dr. Bimali Indrarathne is a researcher and an academic currently working at University of York, United Kingdom. Previously, she worked at King's College London, Lancaster University, United Kingdom, and at General Sir John Kotalalu Defence University, Sri Lanka. She has a Doctor of Philosophy in Applied Linguistics and Master of Arts in TESOL, both from Lancaster University. She also has a Master of Arts in Linguistics from University of Kelaniya and Bachelor of Arts from University of Peradeniya. She holds both Cambridge, Delta and CELTA. She is currently running several teacher education projects in Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka on English language teaching, materials designing, teaching English in university contexts and raising teacher awareness on learning difficulties. She is a consultant of Commonwealth of Learning Canada and works with the Ministry of Education, Sri Lanka, on school-based teacher development and online teaching initiatives. She has published widely in reputed journals in the field and has been a plenary speaker in conferences such as Oxford LTOC, TESOL Greece, Specific Learning Differences Colloquium, 20th National REST Conference in Sri Lanka, and SLEL Tech Conference. She has also been an invited speaker at several institutions, including Oxford University, Chongqing University, China, and Tata Institute of Social Sciences, India. She is a regular speaker at international conferences such as American Association for Applied Linguistics, Eurosla, ITFL, and BALIB. Madam, we cordially invite you to commence the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much and very good morning to all of you. I'm really looking forward to this session and it's great to see papers coming up about COVID-19 experience in the field of ELT, and I hope all of you are looking forward to listen to our presenters today. So we have 5 presentations. I'll briefly explain the procedure. The presenters have 10 minutes for their presentations. In the 8th minute, we will interrupt you just to tell you that you've got 2 minutes left. And then we have 5 minutes for questions. We will take 1 or 2 questions. But if the participants have extra questions, please type the questions on the chat. We will take the final questions at the end of the session if we have time. Okay, so let's go to our first presentation. The first topic is attitudes of tertiary level English learners in Sri Lanka towards online learning, a study conducted during the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me introduce the speakers. S.R. Dilhara, Nirmani Herath, and R. Kavindi. All of them are third-year undergraduate students in the Department of English Language Teaching at Kelaniya University, specializing in teaching English as a second language. Shehani Dilhara's research interests are English language teaching, second and first language acquisition, Sri Lankan English, and varieties of English and linguistics. Nirmani Herath is interested in the pedagogy of teaching English in Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan English, linguistics, and English literature. Ravisha Kavindi is interested in pedagogy of teaching English as a second language in Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan English. I guess it's Dilhara who is presenting, and it's over to you, Dilhara.
A very good morning to all of you. I'm Shahani Dilhara from the Department of English Language Teaching at the University of California. Today I'm here to present our research titled Attitudes of Tertiary-Level English Learners in Sri Lanka Towards Online Learning, a study conducted during the COVID-19 pandemic. My co-authors are Nirmani Herath and Ravisha Kavindi. This is the outline of our presentation. I'll begin with the introduction. As we all know, COVID-19 pandemic has caused tremendous change in our daily lifestyle, and many of the functions are now virtualized, and education sector is also one such that virtualized. So as a result, the shift from on-site teaching and learning to online platforms has enabled teachers and learners to connect just like a normal classroom, but via an online platform safely and conveniently. So online teaching and learning has come to spotlight due to its flexibility, convenience, and most of all, security. Moving on to the literature review, many studies done on this field are mostly attitudinal, and several studies done by Agum, Fabrianto, Agormeda revealed similar results with their participants. They had issues with regards to connectivity, device affordability, and financial support when it comes to online learning. And our study aims to focus on the extent to which online learning is effective and also the extent to which language skills could be developed in a virtual classroom. So our research study aims to answer the following questions. What are the attitudes of undergraduate ESL learners in Sri Lanka towards online learning, and to what extent they feel online learning is effective for a language class? Moving on to the methodology section of our study, our main goal is to observe tertiary level ESL learners' attitudes towards online learning and to see how they improve in their language skills during the online period and how it affects their overall attitude towards online learning. So we employed a mixed method for data analysis, and our quantitative data was statistically analyzed and our qualitative data was descriptively analyzed. And our population is undergraduate students of state universities, and we distributed a questionnaire among 11 major state universities, and we were able to get 100 responses. And we mainly used a questionnaire for this study, and we divided our questionnaire under these 4 topics: learner background, technological access related information, learner personality, and self-assessment on academic improvement. And our questionnaire consisted of 22 questions, including close-ended questions, multiple choice questions, Likert scale questions, and open-ended questions. When it comes to the validity and reliability of our research instrument, we assume that our participants were able to fill out an online questionnaire, and also we thought that they were in a position to assess their academic improvement in a study, and we provided our questionnaire in both mediums, Sinhala and English. And we opened our questionnaire for responses for 5 days, and we categorized our data as follows. The numerical data were analyzed through spreadsheet tools and developed into charts, and the qualitative data, we observed repeated patterns in the responses and identified the common themes. Moving on to the findings, as I said, we divided our findings under themes, and our first theme is the effect of participants' economic background on their attitudes towards online learning. And we found that many of the participants were in an average or below average income, and they also admitted that they face financial issues when activating data packages and so on. And the majority claim that they use mobile phones for online lessons. And they also said that they had issues with data, and also device cost was unaffordable. So we came to the conclusion that economic background of the learners directly influence their attitudes towards online learning. Moving on. When it comes to the development of language skills, we first look at speaking skills, and majority of the participants agreed that their speaking skills did develop during online sessions, because many of the shy and introverted students who did not speak in physical classrooms spoke more in online sessions, and it became a motivational factor for them. And also they had a positive impact on the development of speaking skills. But they also said that they had issues with connections, and they mostly got disconnected during the lessons, and that caused a problem. And when it comes to the listening skills, they said that they had issues with network connections. That's why, again, they don't have any positive attitude towards the development of listening skills, because most of the time they did not hear what the lecturers said, and then listening activities, it wasn't possible for them to complete them properly, because most of the time they got disconnected from the class. So that's why they said the development of listening skills was not up to an extent in online learning. And when it comes to the writing skills, again, they said that their writing skills did not improve in online learning, because many of their work had to be typed on Word and then sent over. And Word obviously detects their spelling errors and sometimes grammatical errors. So then they tend to ignore those. And also there was no room for one-to-one feedback sessions, and they mostly skipped the sessions with the writing skills, and unless they were compulsory. So finally, when it comes to the reading skills, many had a neutral attitude towards the development of reading skills, because it was mostly not assessed. All in all, the only positive impact was on speaking skills, according to the participants. And another factor that we looked at was the attitudes towards online testing. And quite surprisingly, most of the participants did not like online tests, because they said they weren't fast enough to type in their answers, and the submission process was quite tedious. And so they did not feel as if they were real tests, and they could not perform well. And the ones who preferred online tests said that because it was open book and they were comfortable at home, they could concentrate well on the test. So the other factor that we looked at was the acceptability and adaptability struggle. So we all know that...
Sorry to interrupt, you've got 2 minutes left.
So we all know that we've been used to physical classrooms throughout our life, and this sudden shift would obviously cause certain issues. And we quoted some of the things that students said. I can't learn properly, it's hard to concentrate, lecturing in lecture halls is much better. So another factor that we looked at was frustration and anxiety issues. They said that online learning did not allow them to do collaborative group projects and pair work, and they did not feel the presence of their peers, which led to stress, frustration, anxiety, and many of the times they avoided their lessons. And based on our findings, we found that there wasn't any correlation between gender and attitudes towards online learning, and also the seniority level of the students did not affect their technological awareness. What we did find is that network issues and financial situation played a major role in the participants' negative attitudes. That being said, based on our key findings, we come to the conclusion that face-to-face classrooms still hold a higher preference among the learners, and their attitudes were mostly due to the internet access, connectivity issues, and affordability of devices, and the lack of achievement of learner outcomes. So we believe that if these issues could be resolved, their attitudes could change, because as the pandemic situation still prevails, we will have to adapt to the online learning for quite some time. And that being said, I conclude our presentation. These are our references. If you have any questions or clarifications, you can ask now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shehani and Nirmani and Kavindi for this interesting presentation. Yesterday we talked about teachers' attitudes, and it's great to see some studies coming up about students' attitudes towards online learning. So I think we have time for one question, if somebody has a question. Yeah, okay, so can I ask you a question? Yeah, it's great to see that you found out that their speaking skills improved and they liked it. And I think that's one of the important findings, because in Sri Lanka, the main problem is with the speaking skills, how to develop speaking skills. So this is something very interesting. My question is about listening skills. Don't you feel that online teaching gives the teacher and the students more opportunities to listen to different things, because there are so many examples, so many materials, so many resources available online. So it's not just the teacher. So in that way, don't you think that we can make more resources, listening resources available for learners, not just in classroom listening? We talk about extensive listening that's happening outside classroom. So if we can lead students to listen to things on the internet, don't you feel that would have a different impact?
Yes, ma'am. Outside the classroom, of course, they can access different materials, but inside the classroom, they said that they couldn't hear the lectures properly and participate in the listening activities because of the network issues and those problems.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I think we have about 2 minutes if somebody has a quick question. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting that we have research from students. And my question is like, okay, now in your research, have you considered like look for the attitudes of students, like how much of online teaching should remain after the pandemic situation? Right now we have the pandemic situation and we are all using online teaching and learning. And we are talking about that also. But if and when the pandemic is gone, are there any positives that there should be, that should remain? Or what kind of attitude do they have if you have just researched into that area? But if you haven't, what is your opinion?
we as for now, they were of the opinion that they don't like online learning because of the issues I mentioned. But if we could solve the issues that they have, they might change their attitudes, and also this would continue for some time now, so they will have to adapt to it. And we did not really put a question on that part, whether they would continue that after the pandemic. We missed it.
And I think the chair would, let us know, elaborate on this point. Like she has been involved in online teaching for quite some time, and I feel that there are positives that we can, make use of even after the pandemic is gone. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, I think so. Even yesterday, we discussed all the advantages of online teaching and availability of resources. So these are some of the positives we can take. Probably we can make learners aware of that. Okay, thank you very much, Shehani and the team. Let's move to the second presentation. The topic is assessing the e-learner autonomy among ESL learners in higher education institutes in Sri Lanka. And the presenters are W.S. Sudusinghe and WGC Kumara. Let me introduce the speakers. Vasana Sudusinghe is currently reading for her master's in linguistics, and she is a tutor in English in the Department of Languages, General Sir John Kothawala Defence University. Her research interests are applied linguistics and educational psychology. WGC Kumara is a lecturer attached to the Faculty of Allied Health Sciences at General Sir John Kothawala Defence University. He's interested in educational psychology and medical education. Okay, so it seems Vasana is presenting today, so it's over to you, Vasana.
Thank you, madam. I hope my screen is visible.
It's coming up.
Yeah, okay, madam. Okay. Okay. I hope my screen is visible, right? Okay. Right. As mentioned by Herath 2016, distance education is based on the concept that the students will learn on their own, unstrained by the temporal and the spatial boundaries. Hence, it is clear that one of the important components for the success of distance education is learner autonomy. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We, W.S. Sudusinghe, WGC Kumara, conducted a study to assess the e-learner autonomy among the ESL learners in the Higher Education Institute, Sri Lanka. The contents of our presentation comprise of the introduction, justification, objectives, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion, and the references. Learner autonomy is identified as the readiness to assume responsibility for learning in the service of one's needs and purposes. Learner autonomy entails a capacity and willingness to act independently and cooperate with the others as a socially responsible person in the modern context. The professional teachers admire independent learners and encourage learner autonomy as their primary goal, where the learners are self-directed, taking responsibilities for their learning. Hollick first introduced the learner autonomy approach to language teaching through his work, Autonomy and Foreign Language Learning, published by the Council of Europe in 1979. Being autonomous means achieving the success of self-learning both theoretically and practically. And when it comes to the autonomy of ESL learners, they can control and monitor their learning process without being enforced. The freedom of choice also plays a dominant role in developing the autonomy. The justification of our study. Nevertheless, there is a likelihood that in Sri Lanka, it's not a very familiar concept, and thus few studies are conducted on learner autonomy among the language learners. Furthermore, there is a dearth of studies conducted on e-learner autonomy on ESL learners in Sri Lanka. Therefore, this study has aimed to assess the e-learner autonomy of ESL learners in the higher education institutes in Sri Lanka. The objectives of our study. The general objective is to assess the e-learner autonomy of ESL learners in higher education institutes in Sri Lanka, and the specific objective was to assess the relationship between the e-learner autonomy and the socio-demographic variables among the second language learners in higher education institutes Sri Lanka. Next, the methodology of our study. The study was carried out as a descriptive cross-sectional study, and the study population comprised of the ESL learners of higher education institutes in Sri Lanka who study English via distance education. The data was collected during the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the data was collected using an online questionnaire which was shared on the social media network for 2 weeks of time. And the study's population, the sample size comprised of 154 participants. Before the collection of the data, the informed consent from the participants were obtained. And also before the use of the scale, the written permission was obtained from the original developer of the scale. The study instruments. The online questionnaire developed in English comprised of 2 sections. The section A comprised of questions on demographic information and the distance education. And the section A of the questionnaire was tested using a pilot study among 10 ESL learners, and they were excluded from the main study. And the section B comprised of the e-learner autonomy scale that measured the e-learning autonomy among the students. The convergence alpha of the e-learner autonomy scale was 0.952, which indicates a good internal consistency, and that makes it a reliable scale. The response to each item was scaled on a Likert scale of 1 to 5. And these were the elements that was included in the e-learner autonomy scale developed by Herath. The statistical analysis was performed using SPSS 23.0, and the descriptive statistics were performed. The distribution of the e-learner autonomy score was not normal in Shafirona-Wilk test, and the inferential statistics were performed. The man-Whitney U test for the 2 independent samples was used to compare the variables like gender and the e-learner autonomy. The Kruskal-Wallis test was used with pairwise comparison like academic year and the academic stream. And the statistical significance was established at the level of 0.05. The results and the discussion of our study. According to the socio-demographic data, majority of the study participants were female. And for about 67.5% of the study participants were from the low stream. And in terms of the academic year, for about 41.6% of the study participants were in their first year. And some of the other important findings is such that for about 66.2% said that distance education is not a good way of acquiring knowledge as university undergraduates. And for about 69.5% were satisfied with the support given by the lecturers in distance education. And for about 50.6% were not satisfied with the internet facilities available for distance education. And most importantly, for about 79.2% believe that the distance education is not good when compared to the face-to-face learning. The mean e-learner autonomy score was 31.10, and it was lower than the study conducted among the students from Anadolu University, Turkey, by the original developer of the scale. The e-learner autonomy had a statistically significant difference between the academic streams. and the e-learner autonomy had no significant association with gender in the current study, similar to the study conducted in Turkey. The level of satisfaction on the internet facilities had no significant association with the e-learner autonomy scale. However, a similar study conducted in Turkey revealed that the e-learner autonomy score is directly proportional to that of the ICT use. The learner autonomy had no significant association with the satisfaction and the instructor-lecturer support received in distance education. The conclusions and the recommendations of our study. So it was revealed by the study that the majority of the ESL learners in the study population were having comparatively e-learner autonomy than the previous study conducted on e-learner autonomy using the same scale. Hence, it is important that necessary intervention and commitment on both parties, the teachers and the students, are crucial in enhancing the e-learner autonomy among the ESL learners. Further, curriculum updates should be addressed the e-learner autonomy of the ESL learners engaged in distance education. These are the references of our study. If we are truly effective teachers, then we are creating autonomous, independent, and self-directed learners. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation.
Thank you very much, Vasana, for this interesting study on learner autonomy, e-learner autonomy. So before I've got some questions, but I will let the others ask questions if they have any.
Thank you, madam.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Your main finding is that the learners have low e-learner autonomy, what do you think is the main reason?
Probably, madam, the very first reason I think is this distance education is an entirely new concept when it comes to Sri Lanka, because when compared to the study previously done in Turkey, it was different. So which means on one hand, it could be the fact that the technology is something new to most of the students, right? And also, I think it will take time for further curriculum changes to enhance the practicality in distance education, especially getting students engaged in more practical activities, giving them more room for improvement, expression of themselves, right? So I think that must have been one of the reasons as to why the score is at a low rate in Sri Lanka.
Okay, thank you. So don't you think that it's not really that the learners have, it's not really about learners' attitudes, but probably their experience that they have already received, like, so there is more responsibility lying with the staff or people who teach?
Yeah, definitely, because even for teachers, this is an entirely new experience. So I think more trainings, more exposure is really essential on the part of teachers as well. And also the student is a collaborative responsibility on both sides.
Yeah. Another question I have is, it's about learner autonomy. So learner autonomy is like learners taking responsibility of their learning, right? So, but one of your findings was on instructors' help. So was it in the questionnaire? I feel that they are not kind of related.
Yes, madam, that was included in the questionnaire because the writer has attempted, the original developer has, he wanted to explore whether the teacher's contribution is important in that aspect. Like, for instance, empowering students, encouraging students to be autonomous, because the directions given by the teachers are very important for students to follow the right, way of being autonomous. So it should, I think it should, some responsibility lies on the teacher's hands as well in promoting the autonomy in learning English.
Okay, right. So thank you. Any other questions?
Can I just add an observation here, Doctor?
Yes, yes, please.
This is related to your first question. And when I listened to Vasana's presentation, it reminded me of one of the other presentations we listened to in the morning. So this question of autonomy, I think even in the traditional physical classroom, the teachers are struggling with it, because when they come to university, we expect them to be autonomous, but then again, they have never ever had this training properly during school time. So I think this is not just related to online learning. It becomes what do you call it, heightened during online education, but even in normal classrooms we see this. So I think we'll have to sort of once again we are starting about changing the entire education system. That's all.
I completely agree with you. Even yesterday there was a question about the achievements in online learning when it comes to English language education, but it's even in face-to-face learning we see that the achievements are very low. So it's not really, I think it's not really the mode of teaching. I think it's the content, the materials that we use, the approach that we use, the methodology. So all those things affect. Yeah, I agree with you. We've got 2 minutes if somebody has a quick question.
Vasana, it's Upeksha here.
Yes, Upeksha.
Yeah, can I know what you think about the freedom of choice in virtual classrooms, very especially when it comes to the Sri Lankan situation?
That it means this Upeksha, the students, in online education, there is more room for students to take part in activities, because when it, as pointed by Ms. Lakshani as well, the autonomy is important for university students, but in a classroom setting, we have some chance of looking into what the students do, but when it comes to an online class, there is higher chance that the students might escape, because they may try to come up with technical errors, or so it's the freedom of choice where the students have a higher responsibility as well in making the choice of working hard and trying to be autonomous in e-learning classroom, rather than a teacher directing them in a physical classroom setting.
Okay, thank you, Vasana.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Vasana. I think it's time to move on. So we'll go to the third presenter. The title is Adopting Synchronous Teaching Technologies in Online ELT Classrooms During the COVID-19 Pandemic at Technological Education Institutes. The speaker is Renuka Pathirana. Let me introduce the speaker. RVARK Pathirana received MPhil and MA degrees in linguistics from Kelaniya University, Sri Lanka in 2016. She is currently working as a lecturer in English at the Sri Lanka Institute of Advanced Technological Education. Her current research interest is technology for English language teaching. Over to you, Renuka.
Thank you, madam. Give me a few seconds to share my screen.
Renuka, you're on. Okay.
Yeah. Ma'am, can you see everybody? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see. Yeah, we can see this.
Right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to present adopting synchronous teaching technologies in online ELT classrooms during the COVID-19 pandemic at Technological Education Institutes. This is the outline of my presentation. I'm going to describe the introduction, the research questions and the hypothesis, the methodology, findings, discussions, recommendations, conclusions, and the references. During the global pandemic, the entire education process has been evolved significantly over the online platform by integrating technologies. Thus, the teaching and learning process has raised new challenges and opportunities in e-learning platform. In the traditional classroom, the learning environment is much more effective due to the inherent synchronous method. However, the online teaching approaches are also enriched by adopting different synchronous approaches, such as online teaching over the video conferencing, using of instant messages during the class, breakout rooms, and Google Docs for online activities to deliver sessions, same as a physical classroom. The research question of the study is about approaches to adapt synchronous teaching methods effectively, which is based on the hypothesis whether the technologies are effectively adapted to deliver the true experience of synchronous teaching for the learner. In my methodology, the literature is the priority consideration to understand present use of technologies. Then a group of English lecturers from Sri Lanka Institute of Advanced Technological Education selected based on the purposive sampling for a semi-structured interview, and their shared experiences were recorded and then analyzed based on the thematic analysis. Secondly, to understand the learning experience via the online platform, the online structured questionnaire was delivered among the students at the same technological institute who learn English as a second language using different technologies. And those quantitative responses were analyzed descriptively to understand their trends. The findings over the mixed method are incorporated to describe under the following scenarios in details. As the findings, the data reveals that the level of technological knowledge is above the satisfactory level among both lecturers and the students to manage online sessions. Since they used to practice in a traditional classroom with conventional method for teaching scenarios, adapting different technologies to have a real-time teaching and learning experience is a real challenge for them, of the lecturers, challenge for most of the lecturers who teach English as a second language. However, they use an actual interest to learn and practice the new technologies to enhance their quality of teaching. When talking about the infrastructure for online delivery, as per the findings of the survey, 78.5% of the students have connectivity to the internet. It is a good sign for delivering the online classes with strong participation of the students. Owing to the poor internet connectivity, to attend the lectures is a major concern of students. Some are from very rural areas. On the other hand, most of the students do not have laptop, desktop, or tab devices to join with the ongoing online lectures due to different economic status in their families. Many students are using mobile phones to connect with the lecture sessions as their parents' affordability for purchasing a device. Since the majority is connecting to the lecture via mobile phones, they are having limited contribution for the online sessions rather than using a laptop, especially when they are engaging with the writing activities, doing collaborative activities with the inability of sharing the screen with the teacher and the group members. So it increases distress to the online synchronous classrooms. When comparing the three approaches in figure 4, most of the students speak up in the lecture and using instant messages to maintaining the interaction with the teacher during the online sessions rather than having the video conferencing. Through the purposive sample, the considerable amount, 40% plus, is never using video conferencing. during the lecture sessions. For lectures, they are having positive comments of their students' contribution to the lecture via messaging box. As per the purposive sampling data, students are having satisfactory level for both approaches in synchronous online classrooms. The perception via the questionnaire, they are having a good interest to do group activities via the Zoom platform. On the other hand, for lecturers, due to some circumstances such as the less number of active participation in the task, a large number of students in a class, and the frequent continuity errors of students, some lecturers have discouraged for working with the Zoom breakout groups. When we talk about the interaction during the online lectures, in a comparison of physical classroom with online classroom, the study reveals that both students and the lecturers are eager to have the traditional classroom rather than the online aspects. As per the figure 6, it can be seen as the percentage, more than 66% of students have shown their interest in responding to the options on good and very good, rather than participating in the online classes via the Zoom platform. According to the lecturers, despite of using the mobile phones and other devices, fulfills the minimum requirements for connecting with the sessions, it is not adequate to accommodate the synchronous teaching approaches effectively due to the inherent limitation to the interact with those devices. In my recommendations, as per the collected data and the related analysis, the theoretical framework has been introduced to incorporate synchronous teaching during the online classes representing SLAT as one of the main technological education system across the country. Furthermore, it is essential to conduct training and awareness sessions for all the lecturers to provide some knowledge about the use of advanced tools available at the present for SLAT staff. Then the students should also be educated on those advanced tools, and the lecturers should be the responsible persons for sharing those understandings among them. Further, it is essential to consider those involvements in the evaluation process. Eventually, lecturers should utilize the available synchronous technologies for their online classrooms to facilitate students similar experiences as they are in the physical classroom. In conclusion, by considering all the analyzed data via thematic approach and descriptive approach, the efficacy can be seen a satisfactory level of online synchronous classes by utilizing available technologies appropriately. Both teachers and students need to have technological competencies in the fair stage, and they should improve their competency to conduct synchronous learning environment rather than being traditional one. These are the references for my study. And thank you very much. If you have any question, you can ask.
Thank you very much, Renuka, for this interesting presentation. Again, a very important issue addressed. Okay, so let's see if anybody has any questions.
Dr. Bimali, can I ask a question?
Yes, Krishant. Yes, go ahead, please.
It's not a question, it's just a comment that came to my mind while listening to the speakers yesterday and today. I think one of the things that has come up in the new normal is that we have started looking, we have forgotten what the normal was, or we haven't questioned what was normal. It is only in the new normal that we started, questioning whether the normal was okay. So all these issues that come across in the new normal are actually questioning whether the normal was okay, the conditions in the normal were okay. So I think it's across the disciplines in accounting that we heard yesterday. It's in English language teaching, it's in any field that was being discussed. So right across, I think new normal has actually questioned us on how we looked and how the normal conditions were. Were they okay? Things which we took for granted and stable have an issue. So I think lots of issues have come questioning whether the normal was okay. So just a comment that I came across. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Renuka, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, actually, I agree with Krishanti, Miss. Thank you very much for your comment.
Yeah, I think, yes, Krishanti, it's a good point. So we first have to think whether the previous normal was fine. And we can see that it seems it was not fine. And then we have to think what the future would be, whether we are just moving back to the previous normal as it was, or we are going for a different approach now with this experience. So on that line of thinking, I would like to ask a question from Renuka. So in your context, do you think you should continue online learning, or what approach do you think would be better in future?
Yes, madam. I would like to continue that approach to
You
the
mean
future.
online learning, online teaching?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, currently I have introduced the PhD also related to that online learning process. And I'm willing to continue that, and I'm introducing the things to my staff. I mean, we are discussing the things. So,
okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think it's time to move on to the next topic, our next presenters. The next one is it's a bit different study. So it's a corpus study, preliminary findings of an analysis of the COVID-19 English terminology used in electronic news media in Sri Lanka. Abeyawickrama and K Amaratunga. Let me introduce the speakers. K Amaratunga is currently employed at General Sir John Kothawala Defence University as the Senior Lecturer Grade 1, and he is the current Dean of the Faculty of Management, Social Sciences and Humanities. Major Abeyawickrama is currently employed at General Sir John Kothawala Defence University as a Senior Lecturer Grade 1, and he is the current Head of Department of Languages. Today, Vimansha is presenting, so over to you, Vimansha.
Thank you, Bimali. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Hope you can see that. Can everybody see the screen?
It's coming up. Okay, we can see it now.
All right. Thank you, Bimali, once again. Good morning, everybody. Our topic is preliminary findings of an analysis of the COVID-19 English terminology used in electronic news media in Sri Lanka. Moving into the background of our study, COVID-19 pandemic has brought changes to almost all sectors in the world and introduced new norms, regulations, and procedures. And it introduced many changes to the languages also. Accordingly, new vocabulary emerged rapidly, and they became common words in society within a short period of time. Significance of this study significance of this is shown with the inclusion of COVID-19 as an entry into the Oxford English Dictionary on February 2020. The world came across several COVID-19 terms in English and equivalent in other languages. As far as English vocabulary is concerned, it is possible to recognize two groups of words, ones which have already been used, but not commonly used in public, and the second, the newly coined words. Moving into the terminology, COVID-19 terminology emerged. Language changes takes place over centuries, and as a result, language structures and vocabulary changes. There can be new borrowings, coinage, meaning changes, and structural changes, and this evolvement is a natural process that any language undergoes. However, language changes can also occur over a short period of time, and which such changes is called current change. What the changes we have noticed during the pandemic time is also coming under these current changes. COVID-19 has affected the whole world, and there has been no similar situation in the recent past that has affected the world in the same way. With the spreading of COVID-19, the world also came across a large number of new terms. Some are medical terms which are already there but uncommon, and some terms have been coined. These terms became viral mainly due to the social media and entered into the linguistic systems of almost all languages. The first category, as you see on the screen, is the healthcare terminology, as the words emerged relevant to healthcare. Then there's another category of terminology coming into being, is that immunity lexicon, which are relevant to maintain healthy lifestyle. The third category is included the words relevant to the treatments as quarantine lexicon. So moving on to the purpose of our current study, there have been several studies on the emergence and use of English vocabulary during the pandemic in several countries. However, to our knowledge, no study has investigated pandemic-related new English terminology used in Sri Lanka, and apparently no such study has been conducted relevant to the native tongues in Sri Lanka, that is mainly Sinhala and Tamil. So the aim of this overall study is to analyze the COVID-19 terminology that emerged in Sri Lanka in both English and Sinhala in various news media and social media. In this paper, we discussed only the preliminary findings of this ongoing study and present the frequencies of some commonly used words in English news media in Sri Lanka within the first wave of the pandemic, that is from March 2020 to October 2020. We also discussed some frequent collocations that emerged in the corpus. We attempt to answer the research question as shown on the screen. When we consider about our methodology, we used a corpus approach in this study and in this analysis, and created a corpus of all English electronic news media reports in Sri Lanka, published on the internet between 1st March 2020 to and 30th September 2020. Sketch Engine, an online corpus tool dedicated for educational purposes, was used to build the corpus and also to analyze the data. When building the corpus, we used the keywords COVID or COVID coronavirus and Sri Lanka in order to choose and categorize the news items available on the internet. We manually removed news items that were not published in Sri Lanka, and the corpus contains 61,986 words in total. For this preliminary analysis, we computed the frequency of occurrence of all the words in corpus and also collocation that go with the words COVID-19 and coronavirus. Word categories such as prepositions, articles, auxiliary verbs were excluded in this analysis. So we have been able to find find 4 types of findings. First one, word frequencies. As shown on the table, the most frequent 25 words in the corpus, when we analyze that, we can identify, as you see also, We can identify COVID-19 and coronaviruses are the two most common words that occurs in the corpus. So these words were used as keywords in the search. When we moving into the second findings, word frequencies, what is important is the frequencies of other words. It is possible to categorize all these words as health-related terminology, pandemic management, administration and pandemic management, then economic activities related to terminology. It is unsurprising that the health-related vocabulary dominates the corpus. The administration of pandemic management related vocabulary highlights government involvement in pandemic management. The third one, economy related vocabulary seems to indicate the impact of COVID-19 on various sectors in Sri Lanka, including tourism, which is one of the main prominent income generators of the country and probably the worst hit. Two words, as you see, this curfew and police, that is on the screen. They were like they were stand out. Why we say so? In none of the previous studies, these words have been associated with COVID-19 vocabulary. I mean, not outside Sri Lanka. This is an example of localization of COVID-19 terminology because lockdown was termed as quarantine curfew in Sri Lanka, and it was imposed by the police. When we move into the third findings, coronavirus and COVID-19 are frequently used words in the current English lexicon. It seems several collocations based on these two words have also emerged. We also analyzed the collocation of coronavirus in the corpus and identify 4 frequent categories. Coronavirus is used as a noun in the first category, and it is modified by adjectives and nouns. Then coronavirus, the term coronavirus can modify other nouns also. Third and fourth.
Let me interrupt you. You've got 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Coronavirus is used as a noun in subject and objective cases in these occasions also. Then moving into the collocation of COVID-19. COVID-19 used as an adjective, noun modifier, and as well as verb, as well as a noun in a subjective and objective cases. The notable absence is it is not modified by adjectives and other words, nouns. Moving into the conclusion, this preliminary analysis of corpus of electronic news reports published in English in Sri Lanka on the internet highlights that some common in international used COVID-19 related vocabulary is frequently used in Sri Lanka as well. In addition, some localized vocabulary can also be seen emerging. The terms coronavirus and COVID-19 collocate with other words. Coronavirus is used as noun and a noun modifier, while COVID-19 is mostly used as a noun modifier. Since this is a preliminary analysis, we recommend more in-depth analysis based on a large corpus to confirm the findings. These are a few of our reference materials. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Marsha, for this very interesting study. I'll open the floor for any questions. Okay, so can I ask some questions?
Sure.
Yeah, this is, I think, a different study, very interesting, because we up to this point, we have been talking about teacher experience and learner experience when it comes to English language teaching, and this is something new. So I just wanted to ask whether you have found newly coined words in Sri Lanka, either in English or Sinhala.
For the Sinhala, especially COVID-19 has become a newly coined word, obviously, because we didn't have any other. Virus is probably in Sri Lankan context, but COVID-19, even coronavirus is a newly coined word, and things like flattening the curve and certain kind of a lexicon that we used is the commonly used at this moment is some kind of a, I mean, as I told you that there are some uncommon words which came common in this situation. So flattening the curves and sort of words, yes, of course we found, but I think that's interesting. And when we continue the study comparing with singular words also, we will be able to get to know more about this context.
Yeah, thank you. I think there are a lot of interesting words emerging in social media in Sinhala. So people are coining new words. Probably that's something you can look at later.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any questions? Yeah, okay, so I think we can move on. Can I please remind you, if you have any questions for any of the participants, any of the speakers, you can also type your questions on the chat. We will take them at the end of the session. Okay, so let's go to our final speakers. The title is a participatory survey on effective utilization of teacher, student and student peer interaction on online platforms in second language teaching pedagogy. And let me introduce the speakers. We have 4 people who are authors of this paper: H.P. Alahakoon, NWSC Wijewantha, H.R. Tharanga, and W.E. Dahanayake. All of them are from English teaching unit of General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University Southern Campus. Himesha Alahakoon is an instructor, and she is reading for her master's in teaching English as a second language. Her research interests are linguistics, trends in English language teaching methodology, and features of English, Sri Lankan English. Supuni Wijewantha is a lecturer. She holds a master's degree in linguistics and has 5 years of work experience. Her research interests include second language acquisition, applied linguistics, Sri Lankan English, and literature in language teaching. H.R. Tharanga has engaged in several research studies in TESOL and TESOL, language translation, linguistics, second language teacher education, and semiotics. He's currently working on a study on the implications of bilingual language modalities in content delivery in built environment and spatial sciences degree disciplines. The 4th speaker, Varuni Dahanayake, is an instructor, and she previously worked in the English language teaching unit of the Faculty of Agriculture, University of Peradeniya. She has obtained her BA degree from the University of Peradeniya and has completed the professional qualification in HRM at Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. Today, Himesha Alahakoon is presenting, and it's over to you, Himesha.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I will share my screen now. Okay, I think you all can see my screen.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, good morning all. The topic of our study is a participatory survey on effective utilization of teacher-student and student-peer interaction on online platforms in second language teaching pedagogy. And this presentation consists of these subtopics. Moving on to the introduction and research background. Nowadays, since face-to-face interaction with the students is restricted owing to the pandemic, educators around the world have been required to adopt alternative methods of teaching. Consequently, e-learning has become a commonplace practice over the past year. When it comes to second language teaching and learning in Sri Lanka, it has become vital to alternate the teaching and learning practices in line with virtual education. However, the challenges and difficulties involved in using these language teaching and learning applications have not been sufficiently explored in recent studies. Among them, teacher-student and student-peer interaction can be considered as one of the key factors that affect a great deal for the language proficiency of the undergraduates. Therefore, through this study, it is expected to examine whether ESL classroom that has been conducted through Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and LMS by using diverse synchronous and asynchronous types of learning and teaching could foster learner interaction. Moving on to the brief literature review. Actually, previous studies have indicated that the current internet scenario seems to meet the needs of language learners and enable them with all the opportunities to become active members of online environments. Therefore, learners should be encouraged to use the maximum opportunities and take the facilities that are available for them on online platforms in a productive manner. At the same time, the studies indicate that the teacher plays a key role as an interaction facilitator in online platforms. Moving on to the research objectives and research questions. The main objectives of this study were to examine the perspectives of the undergraduates on teacher-student and student-peer interaction that take place on online platforms and to decide whether online language learning and teaching could enhance the levels of interaction. And when talking about the research questions, the research questions mainly focus on the preferred online interactive activities, the levels of communication among the participants of the study, the extent in which virtual language learning fosters student interaction, and the overall satisfaction of the undergraduates regarding their experience on online language learning pertaining to the aspect of interaction. When talking about the research methodology, the participants of this study are a group of university undergraduates, those who are supposed to study English as a non-credit subject in their first year and second year. And currently they are following Bachelor of Architecture, Quantity Surveying and Computing degree programs. All of them are non-native speakers of English and they study English as the second language. And when talking about the curriculum and each module consists of functional grammar, 4 skills and components related to English for academic purposes and specific purposes. And the study has been conducted in 2 phases. In the first phase, a questionnaire that contains both open-ended and close-ended questions are being given to the voluntary participants. In this regard, 116 participants have responded out of 256 participants. And in the second phase, focus group discussions were conducted with the voluntary participants and data were gathered and a descriptive analysis has been composed accordingly. When considering the research timeline, information has been gathered after a period of 12 weeks where the academic program was entirely conducted through online platforms. So when moving on to the data analysis and results, the students have mentioned that online teacher lecture method is more convenient for them, in which they expect a more teacher-centered education and they have sort of expressed a lack of preference to be engaged in activities with their peers. And also this is something important, like they have mentioned that listening activities are the most engaged online activities during English lectures. and also writing activities as well, but they have expressed much preference to listening activities. And talking about their most favorite online activity type, here also we can see that interaction takes place in a better manner, kind of a better manner in online platforms, because they have mentioned group discussions as their most favorite online activity type. When moving on to the levels of communication and levels of interaction that the participants have had with their teacher and with their colleagues, I think this is kind of similar to the interaction levels in the physical classroom as well. So they have like expressed kind of relative equal interaction levels with their teacher and both with their colleagues. And also overall, the participants have indicated that though they prefer the physical classroom, they are trying their best and they are collaborating with their colleagues and their teachers to generate outputs in their online language learning activities as well. So when talking about the suggestions and implications, the study indicates that the undergraduates prefer to study in a teacher-centered environment in which teacher-student interaction does take place mostly in the online ESL classroom other than student-peer interaction. However, the participants acclaim that the process of teaching and learning the second language ideally happens during the physical classroom other than the virtual environment. And they further state that interaction plays a key role in fostering successful second language learning outcomes. Therefore, the course modules, the instructional activities and technologies should be designed in a way to enhance the aspect of interaction in the online ESL platforms.
Sorry to interrupt you, Himesha. You've got 2 minutes.
Okay, ma'am. Moving to conclusion, this research finding was an indicative of teachers' pedagogical role of being an interactive facilitator and a positive predictor in student satisfaction. Moreover, the study indicates the significance of producing learner-centered creative online activities in order to enhance learner engagement and interactions in online platforms. Overall, what I have to state is that the present prevailing condition of the new normal is digital. The thing is that the pandemic can be considered as an opportunity that gives us a chance to revise and align our materials, teacher trainings, curriculum, and assessment methods in line with modern technologies by enhancing learner engagement. So these are the references that I have used, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Himesha. Another important topic, interaction, teacher-learner interaction and peer interaction. Can you please stop sharing the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we've already got a question on the chat, Saroja. I'll ask the question, did all the students attend English language classes regularly?
When it comes to attendance, ma'am, we can see a positive kind of attendance because like almost all the participants have attended, yes.
Okay, right. So any other questions? I have an interesting observation in your study. In your study, you found out that the most interesting activity or the part that learners found most interesting or interactive is listening, which is an interesting finding because in the first talk we heard that the participants said that listening is the least interesting part. What's the reason, do you think, for your finding?
I think that is the way that we use new methods and new technologies So I think as expressed by the students, they are more convenient in doing listening activities online, other than they are doing listening activities at the physical classroom.
Yeah, I think that's a very good finding. Can you explain what you did as listening activities? Because I think it might be useful for the others as well.
Actually, we have used audio clips, and we have used some songs for listening activities, and also in many cases we have used audio clips, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so you mean like things available on the internet?
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
Right. So do you see any difference between how you use listening materials in face-to-face classes and online? Was there a difference?
I think, ma'am, when we are using listening materials online, they are more convenient for the students, because then they can, like, other than in the classroom, they are connecting with their laptops and their other devices, and as they mentioned, they can like listen more carefully and with much attention and all.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions? Okay, so it seems there are no questions. Right, so we still have some time, about 5 minutes. If you have any questions for any of the speakers, or any comments, any thoughts about what we discussed today. You're also welcome to share your own experience. It doesn't have to be research. You can talk about your experience of teaching online or learning online.
Now, one thing that I noted was like, it's not just on one presentation, but there was an interesting presentation in the earlier session where one of the presenters was, he had done a research on teaching at teachers' colleges. And it was found that teacher educators are not, giving required background for autonomous learning, student-centered learning, and all that. Now, there had been requests from student teachers for such facilities, but the teacher educators seem to be reluctant in providing such kind of environment. So now we talk about learn autonomy and student-centered learning and all that at schools, and then there is a big problem there. And the solution, of course, is with the teachers, but when the teachers are not trained properly, and then they cannot implement those things. And as I mentioned somewhere, now this has become a kind of an elusive concept, that this student-centered learning and all. So when it comes to universities, we find students produced in such an environment. So there is a kind of a issue that is pertinent to the whole education system, that somebody I think mentioned somewhere that, we have to overhaul the whole system of education in Sri Lanka if you want to really solve all these the problems that we see at different levels, like at universities, at school, and colleges and all. That is just a...
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think that's a good point, because this issue was there even before the pandemic. Now it has become worse, I think, because if you remember, I discussed some of the transform findings of about teacher education and how content heavy the courses are and how they do not actually focus more on developing skills and methodology of teachers. So it has been there throughout the issue. And with the online learning, again, we see teachers haven't received any training, any formal training, it seems. Very, very limited initiatives. So teachers seems to be doing things on their own or learning from colleagues, friends, social media. So there is this dire need of designing proper teacher training when it comes to English language teaching. So either it's face-to-face or online, the teacher training initiatives should be changed. So that's one of the, I think, key findings of all these studies.
Bimali, can I make another comment of Mr. Amaratunga's idea, our team's idea? So you're spot on, but I think I like to take our focus beyond this. Now, almost all the time we said that teacher learner-centered education, all these things should be in schools and schools level, tertiary level, almost things. But what about the parents' role? I believe that they are also involved in killing these students, because small kids, now when they especially come to Shishatva Vibhagi, so we destroyed our kids. They are also involved in supporting the system to destroy the people. So they ask them to study certain focus things, and sometimes students miss this opportunity, and these concepts of stereotype learning seep into their minds gradually. Then if you study these things thoroughly, then we will understand nowadays when it comes to online learning, once again students are at home. Now they are under more than strict regulations rather than school. Schools, at least at 10:15, 11:15, you got a break and play. At least there's a free period. And there are some generous teachers who don't come to classes regular basis. If people have certain time, they can be with them. Now, in this particular scenario, these students are in a despondent situation. Now, funny thing that I have notable observation is this usage of electronic things, gadgets. Now, they were prohibited to use it, but because of this pandemic situation, now they are forced to use it. But at the same time, they are fast learners than the parents, elders, adults. Now, not only the parents, now if there are extended families, the aunts, uncles, everybody becomes teachers and principals and co-principals and kind of zonal directors. So I think we need to understand this thing seriously, because this is happening in our level also. Because when we teach online to our students, sometimes we have noticed other people's influence is there when they listen to the certain teaching methods, certain things of what we teach, and some comments are made. Casually we can do that. I think these are areas that we should do a good study on that, because especially the involvement of other parties, because Guru, Deguru, both are required now, I think, to create a good people and a good society.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. So we always forget parents and their involvement in children's education, and there aren't many studies. I mean, I haven't seen any study done in Sri Lanka on parents' attitudes, parents' expectations. So these are very good research areas when it comes to education. We have to look deeper into. Yeah, so thank you for making those comments. I think it's time that we can summarize this. So first of all, I would like to thank all the presenters for excellent presentations. First, SR Dilhara, Nidmani, Herath, and Kavindi, they talked about attitudes of tertiary level learners on online learning. And then Vasana Sudusinghe and Chandimu Kumara's talk was on e-learner autonomy. Then we had a talk by RVARK Pathirana on synchronous teaching technologies at technical educational institutes. Then the fourth presentation was on COVID-19 terminology used in Sri Lanka. And finally, we listened to Himesha about peer and teacher interaction in online platforms. And all of these studies contributed a lot to our current understanding of online teaching, what's going on during the pandemic in Sri Lanka in the ELT field. And thank you, all of you, for taking initiative to do these studies and also taking time to write the papers and present. And we hope that you will continue your research. More and more research should come in order to understand the complete picture about ELT field in Sri Lanka during the pandemic. So I would like to encourage all of you to continue more and more and do more studies, and also go into new avenues, look at other topics that you can explore under this theme. So thank you again. Thank you very much for presenting and sharing your ideas. I think it's time that we stop the session now. So I'll hand over to Tamara.
Madam, thank you for chairing the session. It is a great honor to have you here in KDU-IRC Technical Session 2. At the same time, I would like to thank the authors for sharing their interesting findings, and we appreciate your hard work. And I would also like to thank the participants of this session. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, madam. That was such a scholarly session on almost all these sessions that we were studying so far. All these valuable insights gave us a new perspective that one should adopt while discussing these issues practically. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to thank Dr. Bimali Indrarathne for chairing this session. And I would like to thank the presenters on behalf of the virtual gathering here for valuable knowledge that they have provided us. S.R. Dilhara, N. Herath, and R. Kavindi. W.S. Sudusinghe and WGC Kumara. RVARK Pathirana, W. Abeyawickrama and K Amaratunga. H.P. Alahakoon, NWSC Wijewantha, H.R. Tharanga, and W.E. Dahanayake. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, on behalf of the organizers, I would like to request all speakers and chairperson of this session to turn on their web cameras for an official photograph. It has been a privilege to share the knowledge in this moment with all of you. With that, we'll be ending up today's second technical session. Thank you all for your honorable contribution. I kindly request you to join with the first technical session for Social Sciences and Humanities of 14th International Research Conference at 1:30 p.m. Have a pleasant day.